Hello everyone. It has been a while since I've posted, and it's been one of those things where the last 2 months have just been a little chaotic. So this is a March and April reading wrap up. In March, I hit a bit of a book slump and had only read 3 books that entire month. And I was like, I don't want to post a reading wrap up with just 3 books. And April started and it got a little chaotic. Our cars started breaking. My kids got sick. I got sick. My kids are still sick and I'm still sick, hence the crazy look, get up, all that. But I figured that I wanted to get this out so that way we can start doing another video here shortly that I have planned. So we're gonna start with March's books. Like I said, I had 3 that I read. I don't have any of them because 2 of them were library books that had to be due way back then, and 1 is an ebook. But the first one is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'll have it popped up, obviously. But that one was an interesting book, I will say. I kept seeing it. I really like the cover. I'm one of those people where I'm going to judge the book by the cover because it's so interesting to see how the covers kind of relate to the stories, which for that one and then the next one after, I was noticing some clues from the covers that had to do with the story, actually, that I wouldn't have suspected, kind of, when I was reading a little bit of it. But Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, that one I gave a 4-star. It was a really interesting read. It was kind of a little difficult at first, to be honest, because it was almost such like an academic, like, journaling thing, to where a lot of the stuff I was reading, I'm like, what is she talking about? I was like, God, it feels like I'm in school learning this stuff with her and things. But then it started to kind of pick up to be where it wasn't so much academic. Like, there were still parts of it that were like you're learning about like different creatures or different things and stuff, but it wasn't so like strongly academic kind of as it was progressing, that it was like a little easier to read. But basically, the story is about Emily Wilde. She's a scholar. She works at a university, and she's trying to make this encyclopedia of fairies. And I can't remember the exact reason why she went to the specific spot for this book. I can't remember that. But she goes there. She's staying in this little cabin. And then, like, the book tries to make it where another professor that she kind of doesn't 100% like comes in following her. So it's trying to make it seem like an enemies to lover, but it really wasn't. Like, she didn't really like him, but that's because he was like aloof and like charming and all this. And of course she's kind of mousy, kind of like not 100% like friendly. Like, she's strictly academic to the point, trying to do her research and all this stuff. And then he comes along and he's like trying to charm and talk and like tell stories and stuff. But it's not an enemies to lovers kind of thing and stuff. And it has some interesting stuff that happens. But like I said, it's one of those books where it took a while to get into it and stuff. And I think that's why I kind of wasn't able to give it like such a high rating, is because I was more confused kind of with it. And like in the book itself, it has like the little asterisk marks after like certain things, to where you would then go to the bottom of the page and it would have like little paragraphs or long paragraphs sometimes explaining it. So it was really kind of like an academic paper, even though it was also supposed to be like written in a journal format. But it was still a good read. I will give that. So that one, like I said, it was good. It just took a while to really get into it. And then I did read already the second book, but it won't be for April's wrap up. because I was trying to, but I didn't finish in time for April. So, what was it? The next one, this one, this one I think is the one that put me in my slump a little bit, and it's The Watchmaker of Filigree Street, I think it's called. I'm not so sure on the name, the Filigree, I want to say it is. But I got this book because, again, the cover is what drew me in. And this one specifically, it had a little hole to where the watch part of the book, like you open it and then the watch is still there on the first page and you got to see it from the cover. So I really liked the cover. And the story, it was interesting in a sense. And like I really wanted to try to like stay focused on it, but there was so much going on in this story that I was so confused. So let me kind of explain what it's about so you can understand why I was so confused while reading this book and why I think I only gave it a 2.5 star, because that one hurt. So there's a guy named Nathaniel Steepleton, but he goes by Thaniel. That alone bothered me because he didn't want to go by Nate like his father, so he went by Thaniel. So basically he got rid of the first 2 letters of his name and went by Thaniel. And I don't know why, but that bugged me so bad because I'm like, I don't know anyone named Nathaniel that goes by Thaniel. They always go by Nate or something else, but I've never heard anyone go by Thaniel. But he magically or mysteriously gets this pocket watch and he can't open it at first. He tries to go and pawn it. He can't pawn it because the pawn shop guy is like, no, the last time I bought one like this, it disappeared and I lost a lot of money. So he can't get rid of it. And it's like an early kind of like England setting, and like there's this group that apparently is causing problems and they threaten to do a bomb. And so Nathaniel guy, he works as those people who do like not typing, but they're doing telegrams. So they're doing typing on like a machine to send telegrams, because I don't think it had phones at that time. It had telegrams or telegraphs, whatever it's called. And so he works as one of those who types out the messages on that to go across lines and go to different places. And so he works in like the government basically. And then he goes out and they get told that there's going to be a bomb on a specific date and stuff in certain buildings, and it doesn't happen. So they go out to celebrate because they're like, oh, it didn't happen. We're okay. We're safe. Woo! And they go and they're all celebrating at like a bar or a club or something. And then all of a sudden that pocket watch he has starts making this noise and it's loud and it's screeching. And so he's like, I got to get out of here. It's disturbing people, right? Being respectful. He goes out and then all of a sudden in that building the bomb goes off. And so basically the pocket watch warned him and stuff. And so now he's like, crap, I might be a suspect because I knew based on this pocket watch to get out of the way from this bomb. And so he leaves and then he's trying to find the maker of the watch. He finds it. It's this Japanese guy named Mori, odd fellow, and stuff. And he's trying to talk to him and he's like, oh, I don't know. It just like disappeared. I don't know where the watch goes. I didn't give it to anyone. Stuff like that, right? And so then the Nathaniel guy is trying to help investigate, and they want to suspect the Mori guy. And like it's just so confusing after that, because all I wanted to know was just who was responsible for the bomb, but then like it was all these different tangents and stuff that just were so weird. And like it was trying to be like a historical kind of fantasy kind of thing, but it was no. And like it tried to add a little bit of romance, but it was like such a weird random kind of romance that just didn't work. And it was just no. And like I said, I was so confused, and the ending of the book was just so confusing and weird. And like you don't find out until like the last 2 chapters who finally set the bomb off. And it's just like, really? That's it? And so, yeah, I was so disappointed in that book. And like I said, I think it kind of put me in a book slump because after that, it took forever for me to read another book. And I tried a book by an author who I've read before, tried a brand new book. I was trying different other books that I was like recommended and reading, and nothing was working. So I really think it put me in a book slump just because of how weird and confusing that book was. And I was so upset by the fact that book. But before the end of the month happened, I was able to get one more book in, and it was The Love Interest. And this one I got because I saw a couple of booktubers reading it, and I was like, it was on my library Libby app. So I was like, let me try it, let me read it, see what it's about, see if I like it. And I really did like it. It was quick, it was easy, it was fun, it was interesting, and it was just so good. And that's why I gave it also 4 stars. And I would probably say that it was my favorite book for the month of March because it was just, it was easy, it was fun, and I liked it, and stuff. And I'll be honest, I can't remember the characters' names, and I feel bad for that. I just know the girl, she's in a finance department for this company, and they're branching into like media-based stuff, like trying to do like, kind of like how BuzzFeed and stuff are doing it, like where they did like articles and stuff like that, but then they also were including like videos of stuff. And so it was kind of like that's what her company was about, and she was trying to go for this new job to try to like make herself feel like more important and like she was part of something bigger, and stuff. And she didn't get it. Instead, she finds out that the boss's son got it, and so she's angry and mad that he got it because of his like, the word where he like knows someone, or because he's the boss's son, and so he doesn't really deserve the job. But then she meets the person, and she's learning that he does deserve the job. He knows what he's doing. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. So she ends up finding out more about him. She gets to still work with him with the possibility of going and getting a promotion to where she can go to London, which is her big goal because her mom, who passed away when she was younger, is from London, and so she really wants to have the chance to go to London and work there and be there so she can also feel closer to her mom and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a really interesting story. It still kind of tries to make it like an enemies to lover kind of thing, or rivals. Like they're rivals, but they're not really rivals. They're working together, and there's some tension, but it's because, again, it's a lot of miscommunication. Like, she thought he got the job because he's the boss's son, and he's like, yeah, no. He's like, my dad doesn't know I work here. And then you find out a lot more about him and his past, and understanding that, like, he had it rough. So, like, even though, like, a lot of these books say enemies to lovers, it's, like, not really enemies. It's just, like, hey, you have an idea of who I am, but you don't really know me. And then once you get to know me, you realize that you were wrong about your, like, stereotypes and, like, ideas about how I am as a person. So, that was that book. Like I said, it was a 4-star. It was pretty good, but, like, the ending was kind of annoying. And I think that's where I kind of got, like, no. Like, it was doing good. It probably would have been higher, but it went down for that. So, there was that. So, those are the 3 books I read in March. So, now, let's move to April. April, I read 6 books. 5 of them are physical and 1 ebook. And even though April had a lot more chaos, somehow I was more able to read these books than I was in March, where there was less chaos, but I was in a book slump. Doesn't make sense to me, but let's get going. So the first one I read was The Kiss Curse. This one is the second book from the X Hex, which I read in February. This one follows Vivi's cousin Gwen and Rise's brother, who goes by Wells because his name is so hard. And basically, Gwen, Vivi, and Gwen's mom all took over the village's power source because they're the rightful owners of the power source, because Rise and his family's ancestor took it from their great 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 aunt or something like that, right? I think I mentioned it for the XX, but they got the power, and then Wells and Rice's dad is all butthurt. He's over in Wales, England, butthurt that the power is taken, and he's telling Wells that like these women took it. No, our ancestors would never take the power. And what was it? He basically says that they enchanted your brother and stuff, and it's crazy. So Wells agrees to like, hey, I'll go, because he's tired of being where he's at. He's tired of doing nothing and not like having any enjoyment and just being there, kind of. So he's like, I'll go and I'll set things straight and check things out, right? And so his dad's like, cool, go ahead. And then Gwen runs a shop, and it's like a little magic shop, joke shop, because it's all about Halloween and stuff, like jokes of like not real magic, but stuff that like it like makes you think it is. And Wells opens a shop right across from hers that is a more fancy, kind of luxurious magic shop that again doesn't sell real magic, but it gives you the feeling of it, right? And so she instantly is annoyed with him. She doesn't like him. She's like, how dare he? She's like, no. She already didn't like Rise in the first book, which was funny, and I loved the banter between them. So that was funny. But the whole point of this is that there's some stuff going on where Vivi is gone, Gwen's mom is gone, and so she's in charge of like making sure the power, like the magic ley lines, I think is what they call it, are good. And there's some people that are coming, because since the power shifted and changed, there's some other people who are coming who may try to take over it. There's some weird stuff happening. She's trying to help mentor 3 witches who are in college and stuff, and dealing with her attraction to Wells, but she doesn't like him and stuff. And then her magic is going on the fritz and has to figure it out and stuff. So it was an interesting, good book. This one I also gave a 4 stars. It was good. It was interesting. There's just some parts where it's like a little questionable, just a little, but it was a good book. Next one was Our Infinite Fates. This is my book of the month book that I got. I don't even know which month. I haven't read a lot of my book of the month books, and it might be a video later in life where I decide to just have a whole month dedicated to reading some of my book of the month books, because I have so many that I have not touched. This one is the first one in a while that I have touched, and like I said, a lot of it has to do with this cover, and it's just so pretty. But this book was an interesting one. This has to do with 2 people. Oh, Evelyn and what was the other name? Oh, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Arden. That's the name. I was like, it's a weird name for the boy. But Evelyn and Arden, they are these 2 people in this book who have, I would say, kind of a curse put upon them to where they have to kill each other before their 18th birthday. And then after they do, the other one dies. And then they go on to another lifetime in a different place. Could be different genders, different things, all this stuff. And they go through the process again, where they're going through different lives, building like relationships, friends, families, all this stuff, to have it where they end up being like tied together and have to go through the process again of killing each other before their 18th birthday. And so this one's interesting because at the time Evelyn is in England. It's like early 2000s and stuff. And basically, or not early 2000s, I think it's later. 2022 is when it happens. But they're in England, and her dad had passed away, and her sister is battling, I think it's like leukemia or cancer or something. But basically, she's able to give bone marrow or stem cells from her to her sister to help save her sister's life. But like it's like creeping up on her 18th birthday, so she's afraid that the Arden guy is gonna come and kill her before she can help save her sister. And she's one of those people who she like develops like deep relationships with her family and like has these connections and all this stuff. And like she remembers bits and pieces from her past life with Arden and stuff that happened. But yeah. And so she's trying to figure out who is Arden. She's like, is he already here? Because the one before they went to Wales, they were in like El Salvador, and she never knew that he was this one guy, and he just killed her like no problem. And so she's trying to figure it out. It's interesting. It's a little like difficult. It takes some time. Like this is not a book that I thought like it doesn't keep your attention like 100%, I think, in my mind. But it is interesting enough to kind of keep you interested enough to keep going. Because, like, there's pieces where it'll show the past lives and, like, stories that happened then for both of them. And, like, they kind of relate to the current life that she's living and stuff. And then, like, it's just, it has a bunch of different, like, stories from different places and, like, areas and stuff. So it is interesting in that aspect, but it's not like a gripping interesting. It's like, oh my gosh kind of thing. It's just more of like a slow build kind of. And I will say the end, like, so she only knows bits and pieces, but the Arden guy knows everything. Like he knows from the very, very, very beginning. So he knows why they are cursed. And she always kept trying to get him to tell her, and she's like, just tell me why we're in this predicament, like what happened. And he's like, you don't want to know. And then you finally find out, and it's kind of like, it's not like that big of a deal in my mind. And then like the ending part kind of happens, and you're like, oh, okay. But it's like, it like felt lackluster to me. Like there could have been like just something more. Like I don't know, like it felt like the build up to where it went, like it was supposed to be like, oh my god, fire, cool, intense, and then it was just, it burned out. And I was like, don't really care. I don't. So yeah, I gave this, I think, a 3.75. Like, oh, so hard. Like it took me forever to kind of read this one, and it was just lackluster at the end. And like the ending, like I was just like, is that a good thing, a bad thing? Like what's going on? So I don't really know. So I think this was the next one. So I was reading 2 books at a time, kind of, for these next ones. So I'm not 100% sure which one I finished first for this next set. The ending ones I do because one was quicker than the other. But this one, I'm not sure. So I think my next one was Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is book 2 in a Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. That one, I don't even know how long ago I read it. I have the book and stuff. And then, yeah. And this one, I kind of flew by pretty quickly. It was just so interesting because, again, Pip is done basically being a detective after she helped solve the case with Andy Bell and Sal Singh. I might be saying his name wrong. Is it Sal? It is Sal because she's Robbie. Robbie is the brother. She's with Robbie. They're dating now. She's working on a podcast that talked about that case, and then is kind of talking about the trials. And in between that, a friend of hers, his brother disappears, and he's like, hey, can you help find him? And she's like, oh, well, I stopped being a detective or stopped doing that because stuff happened. because the last book, she got hurt. Her dog, in case you haven't read the first book, the dog, that was heartbreaking as is. But yeah. And then this one, like I said, it was super interesting. It's funny because my oldest daughter told me kind of like how this one slightly kind of ended, because she's read the whole series after me. She read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and then she got this one, and then the third one, and she finished it, and she's like, okay. And so I was like, I was a little slow. I was a little slow to catch up, but I read it, so that's all that matters. But this one was really good. The ending was nowhere near what I was expecting, like, at all. Like, the other book, the first one, kind of was building up to that, to where you knew. This one, you had no clue. No clue at all. And then you find out, and you're like, huh? And then you find out more, and you're like, oh. So, like, this one, and then, like, there's some stuff that happened, and it's just... So, this one took me on a roller coaster. I gave this one a 4.5. It was so close to being a 5. I don't know why 100% that I just couldn't give it a 5. I think there was parts of it where, like, I think the way that Pip was acting was kind of just like... And then also, too, like, you didn't get as much Ravi in it because he was busy doing something else in regards to them. And then, of course, there's a part in here where you're just like, oh, like, it's just so annoying, so annoying. Actually, there's a couple parts where I think I got so pissed off. And it's good because, again, the fact that I was feeling emotions for this meant that it was a good book. It meant that it was a good book. So, yeah, that one was the best book by far for this month. I don't know if I'll get the next one yet. We'll see. That one was just one I picked up and I was like, let me grab it. And then, like I said, I flew by. So, let me see. The next book was, this one's the one where the name I might mess up, but it's The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I didn't put irregular in the thing. I messed up. Oh well, I'll fix it later. But yeah, this one was an ebook that I got off of my Libby app. This one was an interesting book, pretty quick and easy as well. Basically, there's a girl named Micah. I don't know how you would pronounce her name 100%. I think that's her name. It feels like it's her name. Now I'm questioning or second guessing. But basically, she's dealing with that. She's a witch. All witches in this book, basically their parents die. There's some sort of curse that like makes it where that happens, where your parents die once you're born if you're a witch. Even if your parents are witches and they give birth to you and you're a witch, they die later in some way. So she ends up having it where her mom and parents die. She gets basically taken by this other witch in, and she's given like private tutoring and all this other stuff and taken care of. And like witches aren't supposed to be together, they're supposed to be separate and like not work together or be close in confinement because magic goes crazy if you're too close together. But they meet up like once every 3 months, I think it was, and stuff like that. So it basically had it where she gave the name and the person in head charge of the little thing is like brushes it off, but is getting upset because she's online kind of pretending to do witchy stuff but not real magic, but it's online making it seem like she is. And so she got like scolded from. But then like far away there's this person who sees her and it's like, hey, she can help us with our problem. And like there's other people that are like, are you sure though? Can you trust it? How do you know? Kind of stuff like that. And so the book basically is that she gets hired by these people who are running this estate or this manor, because they got hired by this other person named Lillian, I believe it was. And basically they're trying to get her to come in and help tutor 3 young girls who were brought in by the Lillian head household lady, and stuff. And these 3 girls are witches and they're losing control of their powers and they have this guy who's gonna come kind of at the end of the year to inspect the estate and manor on behalf of the head of household. And she's like, well, why can't she come? And they're like, oh, she's so busy doing research for archaeology stuff, and she just doesn't care and stuff like that. And you learn that that's not true, and that there's some other stuff that goes on, but that's some other stuff that's interesting, but it happens. And yeah, and there's the staff that's kind of different, and these girls are different. Like they're different races, different ages, different attitudes, stuff like that. And so she agrees to help and stuff, and she's teaching them magic, and she's opening up to these people, but then she gets betrayed near the end, and she gets upset, and she's like, if you would have just told me to begin with. And they're like, yeah, but we couldn't know if we could trust you, because you kept saying that you would have to tell this one person, because the girls can't all be together, but they're like sisters now, like you don't mess with them. And so it's interesting and stuff how it happens. The ending was kind of surprising a little bit with a reveal and stuff. So it's one of those things where it was pretty interesting, but I only give it like a 3.75 because the thing too is that she's constantly talking about how she's alone and how she can't do this and can't do that, and it's like, ugh. And then you get to have information about, I want to say his name is Jamie, if I remember correctly, and he's like the librarian of the estate, right? And you get to learn a little bit about him, and it's like a little awkward and weird and stuff, but yeah, so it wasn't the greatest, but it was still an interesting read, and I still liked it. It's just not one of those ones where like I was like, oh my god. And there's some parts in there that a couple of the girls, the stuff that happened with them was interesting, so it was a good read. It was. Next one after that was The Ministry of Time. This book was one that I saw the Queen of Book Talk reading, and she loved it. And if you don't know who that is Haley Pham. I saw her read this, and she loved it. And I was like, I want to get this. And so I placed a hold, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and then I finally got it. And then, of course, then right away after, like, the time period like went by, it said, hey, somebody else wants it. You gotta return it. So this is overdue, and I need to return it. So at that time, I was like, I have to read this so I can know if it's as good as Haley claimed it was. And I think I gave it a 3.5. So it's interesting. This book is about a girl who becomes kind of like a caretaker for basically, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. Basically, this has to deal with time traveling, but not in the usual sense of like, hey, you're going back in time. It's more of, hey, we brought someone from the past to come live in this current time, and we're going to see if they can survive. See if they can learn and grow and get to understand certain things, right? So the girl, you never get to learn her name, ever, which is slightly annoying because I don't know how to call her other than the main female character, right? She's in charge of taking care of one of the people who come from the past. His name is Graham Gore. These are people who, in their time period, they are going to die because of an incident. So it doesn't matter in their minds that they take them because they were going to die in that time. So if they're going to die, then you take them, bring them here. They go through things, right? And this book was long, like in the sense of like the chapters were long. The stuff going on was kind of like long and boring, and like some of the stuff she was talking about, I'm like, what do you mean, what, and stuff, and like I just kept pushing through because I'm like, what's going on, right? And I kept going. The ending is confusing and crazy and weird, but it does make it interesting. But then also it's like a little sad kind of near the end. So yeah, like I'm just confused. Like there's a lot of stuff in here. Like I think like if I reread it somewhat, now that I know kind of what's going on, I might be able to pick up more on certain things. Because, like I said, the main female character was saying certain stuff where it just didn't 100 make sense. Because she's talking about the stuff that's going on with, they call them expats. Because it's like not like you're immigrating or taking people in who are exiled and stuff, but you kind of are from history. So they get called that. But she's talking about them learning about certain things and like getting tested for certain things and stuff like that. But then there's also parts where she's like describing how she's feeling, what's going on with her and stuff. So that part is where it's confusing, because it's like when she talks about it, it's like she's talking about it from a past perspective instead of like a current one. And so yeah, it's confusing. But it was an interesting read, but confusing. And while I was also reading this, because one of my kids picked this, and then one of them picked this other book, and that one had long chapters, but I finished it first. This one is the next one and last one, and this is dreadful. This one I saw, and I was like, oh, it looks interesting, right? Again, I'm a sucker for the covers. You can't really see 100%, but I laugh because there's like little garlics, and there's this, and then like down here you have like a little skull and books and stuff. And so it looks interesting. And so I was reading this in between that one, and somehow I finished that one faster. Even though, like, this one, I think was, like, my husband was like, oh, you should read this one first. It's smaller, and yet it was longer to read. But this one has to do with this guy waking up. He has no clue what's going on. He's in this place, like, dungeon workshop area, and he has no eyebrows. It mentions it on the back. Yeah, it says, it's bad enough waking up in a half-destroyed evil wizard's workshop with no eyebrows, no memories, and no idea how long you have before the dread lord, whomever, shows up to murder you horribly and then turn your skull into a goblet or something. And then it says, it's a lot worse when you realize that the dread lord, whomever, is you. And so the guy wakes up, no memories, no eyebrows, no idea what's going on. He's worried because he's like, I don't know where I am. Oh no, what if I killed the guy who's in charge? What if it's this? And then he finds out, as time progresses, I'm the person. And he's supposed to be an evil wizard kind of thing. And he's like, oh my god, like, what? And like, he has a kidnapped princess, and he's part of this big old plan with other wizards, evil wizards, to do some sort of ritual thing that involves this princess. But he has no clue what's going on. Why? And he's trying to find a way to, one, get his memories back. What was he doing? How does he know? Like, he's getting snippets of certain things and stuff, but he's like not sure. And like, he's trying to change his character. He doesn't want to be evil, but he's finding it's hard to be good too, because like he gets in these fits of moods where like someone says something and something happens, and he's like kind of like feeling towards it. And yeah, it's just one of those things where he's like, I want to be good, but it's hard. I need to find out what's going on. This big evil wizard guy is gonna come, and a bunch of other like wizards like me are gonna come, and we're doing this ritual, and it involves this princess who has no clue what's going on either, and she's not sure. And a lot of stuff's happening, and he's trying to change his character, trying to figure this stuff out, trying to save her. And yeah, it was confusing, it was long, and stuff like that. And I gave this one a 3-star because like it was excessively long, and it was annoying with how much he just kept saying, I'm not this guy, even though he kind of is. And he's like, I'm trying to do better, but I'm finding out this stuff. And then he's like, oh my god, like all this stuff. And it was just slightly annoying because it was like, it's interesting, but it was just like, it's like whining. Like it felt like he was kind of whining about like how he wants to do better and he doesn't want to be known as evil. But then like he's realizing it's hard to be good, and it's like he's complaining about that too. It's just, it was hard. It was hard. And the ending, like I said, it was pretty interesting, but it was also slightly disappointing as well. The part I think that was the most funny was probably about the garlic, which, like I said, that's why I pointed out, like, this is garlic. And that's because he's got his castle above this village and he's taking care of them, and they're like, we had bad harvest and crops and stuff. And he's like, did you get anything good of one item? And she's like, we had a crazy abundance of garlic. And he's like, okay, well, I want you to hold a garlic festival, try to get rid of as much garlic and do all this stuff. And in between that, he has the army coming that was trying to get the princess back that he has, and then that's also the same time that the dark wizards are coming together to do the ritual, so he has all of this happening at once. But the parts with the garlic are kind of funny and interesting and stuff like that, so yeah. And so, like I said, those are all the books I read for the month of March and April. Like I said, March I had a bit of a book slump. April, even though it was crazy with car problems and sickness and illness, surprisingly did better than I did in March and stuff. May is here now, and I've already finished one book, which I was trying to finish before April ended and didn't. And then we got some other books that are coming, and like I said, I do have another video idea that I'm going to be working on, so that we don't just, again, keep going back to wrap-ups, because, again, I don't want to be boring and just having wrap-ups. I want some other fun, interesting stuff to go on. So we will see how that goes, but let me know your thoughts and ideas on those books, if you thought the same thing or differently. And yeah, make sure that you like and subscribe if you have gotten this far, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!